at the aberrant horror he had summoned, the sorcerer smiled at the party and cast thaumaturgy on the gibbering mouth, increasing its volume to 300 feet. Oh, hello there, player characters and Dark Watchers. If you're returning to our channel, welcome back. And if this is your first time here, welcome home. I am once again your DM Jon. Currently we're going through our Lore of Etharis video series based upon the wonderful product brought about and created by Ghostfire Gaming in their Grim Hollow series, where we're going through and talking about the different areas of Etharis. And today we are going to be looking into the Charneault Kingdom. This is in the southwest of the map, and this is as close to a magical fairy forest as you're going to find, the Enchanted Forest, and it is full with magic. Hidden behind the Grove Maze, it is a maze of trees that is designed to get people lost, is the ancient elven kingdom of Charneault, which is Elvish for the land of 1,000 rivers. The human word for this has evolved it from Charneault into Charneault Kingdom. Now, the Charneault Kingdom, as I said, was an ancient kingdom of elves. Back during the era of expansion, many types of people tried to cross this grove maze, and they weren't allowed to. The spirits and magic inherent to the area would not allow any but the most level-headed and honorable of leaders to be granted passage into the land of 1,000 rivers, Charneault. And once humankind was granted this passage through the Grove Maze into there, they've done what humans did to every civilization in Etharis. They started war. Relationships between elves and mankind were not good until eons ago. There was the rise of King Emeric. Now, after a long and losing war against humankind, in an event that's known as the Noble Sacrifice, the leader of the elves, Lord Thuridin Sarador, he sent a delegation to the leaders of the human war chiefs and offered his life. Said, you can kill me in exchange for ending the war and just leave us our city, Toil Cardwell, the last elven enclave. Let's create a pact of peace. The humans thought that this was a trick, but wise King Emeric said, look at how humankind has treated the other races of the world. We've brought the gnomes and dwarves almost to extinction, and we've destroyed the Dragonborn's homeland of the Ember Cairn. Are we going to do the same to the elves? Are we the same as humans everywhere? Or are we something more? And from that day forward, War Chief Emeric was known by the elves and by the men as King Emeric Nobelcoeur. Some legends also state that he was called King Emeric Géantcoeur, which meant Giant King. He was known not only for his compassion and empathy, but for his stature, apparently, and according to legend. And with tales like these, you never quite know where legend begins and the truth ends. But Emeric Géantcoeur was said to have the largest sword ever forged, for so tall was he that he needed it, that he had the blood of giants within him. But under the leadership of Emeric Nobelcoeur, or Emeric Géantcoeur, the humans and the elves created the Pact of the Sacred Land. This outlined the peace between the humans and the elves of Etharis, of Charneault, of the Charneault Kingdom. And what this did was each king of Charneault, and then every king that would come after that king, had to send his daughter to his first daughter to live out her life with the elven shamans, to train her in the old ways. She would be taken to a place called the Temple of the Mists, and she would spend the rest of her days there. Nobody except the elven shamans knows what happens to her. Anyone who tries to find this Temple of the Mist besides the elven shamans, never returns. Now, why is it called the Temple of the Mist? Well, Dark Watchers, this kingdom, the kingdom of Charneault, is the land of mists. It is covered in these mystical mists, and within these mists lie the nature spirits. According to elven lore, for the age of humans, before they came and destroyed and degraded the land around them, the mists covered the entirety of Etharis. And anywhere you were, you could feel the power of the world with these nature spirits. They refer to the era of human expansion as the rotting of the world, because it coincided with the rise of humanity. The more humanity spread throughout Etharis, the more the nature spirits were cut off from the world and pushed away. Now, the only place you can find these nature spirits is within Sharno, and the only place that you can see these spirits, which are invisible to humans, is in the mists of Sharno. Now, therein lies the chief difference and point of provocation between elves and humankind, is elves and Etharis are inherently connected to the land. They can feel it. They can taste it. They have an incredibly deep knowledge and connection towards the beating pulse of the world around them. But humans don't, which is why humankind has no problem destroying a centuries-old forest in order to build a castle. But to an elf, that would be the greatest of sins. Now, these nature spirits mean more to the elves than anything, and they manifest themselves, especially in Charneault, in incredibly powerful ways. They're the spirits of the rocks and the trees and the plants all around us. And as part of the Pact of the Sacred Land, the first daughter of the king had to go to the Temple of the Mists and learn about this from the elves. In return for this, the elves would supply the human Charneault Kingdom with ore and trade in peace. It was a way to unite and protect the kingdom from whatever may come. The elves, the greatest of their shamans, were in this formed into this group called Circle of the Bond Makers. And these bond makers were the shamans in charge of the Temple of the Mist, in charge of making sure that these nature spirits were appeased, and when they're incredibly upset by one action or another, that they are calmed down and brought back to balance wherever they might cause trouble. In return, the humans promised to create knights. Charneault is the land of wandering knights, and these knights, as a squire, they leave their home with nothing but a sword and a shield and an eye for adventure, and they go out, and the most powerful of these knights earn the favor of these nature spirits that bind and bond themselves to each other, creating knights with incredible powers, such as the greatest of knights, at least in recent memory, Sir Guillaume Le Prouve. But we will get to Sir Guillaume in just a minute here. Now, these knights, they usually join into a knight chapter, and of these, three notable ones they talk about are the Windwalkers, which is a knight chapter dedicated to passing messages between cities. The Errants of the Grove are a knight chapter that's responsible for guiding people through the Grove maze and protecting the Charneault Kingdom from invaders coming through the maze, the Grove maze. And then the other two, one is the Chapter Sévère, led by Armand de Sévère. They're very violent, they're very warlike, they look forward to fighting, and they abhor the ancient magics that elves venerate constantly. The last main group of knights that they tell us about here is the knights that are the Guard of the King, where you have the Sévère, which are kind of like your Dark Knights without the cowl. These Knights of Light, these King's Guard, The most venerated of the Knights chapters in the Charneault Kingdom would be the Vermeil Knights. And they are the bonded protectors of the bond makers. They are the sacred protectors of the elvish shamans as they go about enforcing the Pact of the Sacred Land. They wear silver armor that's overlaid with gold, and more times than not, they are the knights that are bonded with a powerful nature spirit that helps them and guides them in their duties. Now, the humans have these knights, the elves have these shamans, and everything's going hand in hand, and everything's good like a fairy tale kingdom should. We are not at the height of Etharis in our tale. In our tale, we are at the decline. So what could decline here? The people of the Charneault Kingdom, they all citizens of the Charneault Kingdom, they all believe in the power of these nature spirits because they can see them. They all say things like, do not spoil or be foiled. If you work against the nature spirits, the knights will stop you. They work in agriculture, they fish the rivers, they rarely hunt because the nature spirits don't like hunting, but they like fishing. So whenever they do things good for the nature spirits, or things that the nature spirits like, their bounty increases, and whenever they do bad, the mists come, and their displeasure is known from flooding and bad weather and things like that. And they lived in peace with the elven people for a long time. However, out of all the elves that lived there, one group more than the rest resented mankind, and that's the Dark Elves. The Dark Elves of Charneault, from the city of Toil Cardwell, the last elven enclave, resented mankind, wanted revenge for the terrible slaughters that they had endured centuries and eons ago. And the Dark Elves, who had the highest amount of sorcerers in their number, grew impatient with waiting for the rise of elven kind to come back. And so they seized an attempt to try and overthrow the human kingdoms and get them out of their ancient elven lands. And what happened with this became known as the Dark Elf Curse. Now, whenever the latest king, Aymeric Nobelcour, sent his daughter over to the Temple of the Mists, the Dark Elves pretended to be her guard, impersonating the shamans, and kidnapped her. They then brought her to the Temple of the Mists, where they proceeded to defile and create this dark ritual of sorts to pervert and corrupt the nature spirits against humankind. Now, the princess who was a part of this, which is Princess Tiffany, daughter of Princess Thibaut de Sauveterre, she had, in an unfortunate twist of fate, the greatest knight in the land was hopeless, is known for two things above all else. Firstly, he is known because he is one of the only knights, perhaps the only knight, to ever bind himself to two nature spirits at once. Such is his connection with the world. The second thing that he is known for is he has honorably yet unsatisfied love for Princess Tiffany. He loves her, she loves him, but they can't be married because in order to keep the peace, in order to keep the Pact of the Sacred Land, King Thibaut de Sauveterre has to turn her over to the elven shamans, or else risk losing the peace between the elves and humankind. And so her lover, Sir Guillaume Lepreux, the greatest knight in the land, I told you we were going to talk about him soon, Sir Guillaume Lepreux, he said if he can't marry the princess, then he will spend the rest of his life as a knight-errant, wandering the kingdom, helping people where they may. But shortly thereafter he made this oath, his nature spirits told him that Princess Tiffany was in trouble. She needed help. And so, despite the Pact of the Sacred Land, despite his newly devoted order to go and wander the land and help people, Sir Guillaume Lepreux broke that oath, and he rushed to the Temple of the Mist, for he was known as the swiftest of the knights. And he saw the Dark Elves, who were led by the head Dark Elf sorcerer named Dianthar. He saw Dianthar performing this dark ritual on his lady love, and he stopped. He intervened, and he stopped the ritual. But in Etharis, half of a ritual is worse than a full ritual. When this happened, the skies turned dark, and the mists turned from their white color to a foreboding black. And since then, Dianthar, the dark elven sorcerer, Princess Tiffany, Suavter, and Sir Guillem Laprue, the great knight, have all disappeared. In order to investigate what happened, the king sent Grand Shaman Etharis out to the Temple of the Mist with a large retinue to investigate what happened, and only the High Shaman returned. And what he said was that since the ritual was interrupted and not completed, that the mist was unstable and needed work to be fixed. And so now, when the mist appears, it sometimes appears as the mist of the past, the nature spirits and their pleasing but pleasant blessings upon the ground. Or it appears as the dark mist. And where the dark mist goes, monsters are born. People are lost. People are killed. This is what they call the Dark Elf Curse. This is what was left of Dianthar. And now they say, in the mists, you can see Dianthar in the dark mist summoning these creatures. You can see Sir Guillem Laprue and his lady love, Princess Tiffany, reaching and begging out for someone to help them, someone to free them from this curse. But as of yet, there have been no heroes to do this. For Etharis is not a land of heroes. The Dark Elves that remained all left the last elven enclave and went to go to an area in the western part of the Charneault Kingdom that no one goes to. That is called Toil Cardwell, the City of the Dead. They said that they were following Dianthar's orders, but only those Dark Elves know what those orders are. The rest aren't able to speak, aren't able to talk. They're all in Toil Cardwell, this City of the Dead. Now, what is Toil Cardwell? Well, long ago in Sharno, whenever the elves were a young race, there lived a princess. Now, this princess, she went by the name of Toil Cardwell. She is known as the Lich Princess, and she was a beautiful elf, royal blood, and the ruler over this area. And she was also a powerful sorceress of the arcane, whose power had no rival. And she started practicing what the elves would start to call the dark arts, and these were arts that instead of using magic to enhance the nature around them, they would take control of the nature spirits and force them to work to their whim. And all of the elves in that time period said that this was unacceptable. This was an unforgivable transgression. However, Toil Cardwell, the princess, did not have such hang-ups over using this type of magic. And so in her realm of Toil Cardwell, she was said to have the power of a god. She could shape the land around. She could shape the land, and she could control the mind of any in Toil Cardwell. Now, it was only through the alliance of all the elven kingdoms and all of their great mages that they were able to stop her master plan, which was to expand her area of influence from Toil Cardwell out past Toil Yamil into all of what is known as Charneault, the land of the elves, land of the thousand rivers. But they banded together and they used a powerful forbidden spell called the Curse of Unchanging, which was a magical web that inhabited the entire land of Toil Cardwell and bound every living thing inside in a magical sleep. It's like time has stopped. No one dares go into this land right now. It's dead trees and black rivers, and anyone who touches that ground is forced with visions of spending their life as a walking dead. But that is where the Dark Elves have gone, on the order of Dianthar. Which is curious because of all things, Dianthar was known, he became the leader, in fact, of the Dark Elves because of his penchant for enchantment magic. He was an enchanter, and he was not very friendly on how he used his mind-controlling spells. Some say that's how he gained his ranks quite as quickly as he did. But I digress. Going back into the Dark Elf curse, it was done by Dianthar. The Dark Elves have fled to the forbidden kingdom of the Lich Princess. Now, the people living in the Charneault Kingdom still. We have the humans, their knights, which are led by Thibaut de Soifter, King de Soifter. He won, the way that the Charneault Kingdom elects their kings, they actually elect their king, is the chapter master of each of the knights meets together, and out of them they all vote on who the next king should be whenever the old king either dies of old age or decides that he is no longer a suitable king. Now, the current king, Thibaut de Soifter, he won the last vote, and this was 5 years ago, and he won the last vote by 1 vote. The second place runner-up is the leader of the Sévère Templars, Chapter Master Armand de Sévère. He competed with King Thibaut de Soifter, and he lost by 1 vote, as I said, and he has since been a very vocal opposer and critic of King de Soifter. And with the Dark Elf curse occurring because of King de Soifter and his daughter, it has only strengthened those who are listening to Armand le Sévère. In fact, now the Sévère Templars, they have adopted a new goal, and their goal is the extinction and eradication of the elven race in general. He believes that he should be king, and he believes that when he's king, the humans of the Charneault Kingdom have no choice but to eradicate the elves in order to save themselves. Now, the elves, in contrary, the elves, they are led by a council, and this council is called the Ashen Eleve. As an elf that lives in Toil you are elected into the Ashen Eleve for a short period, short for an elf, period of 20 years, where you're put into this public service where you help lead the city. And the only other person who has any sort of say are the bond makers and the Grand Shaman, who is currently the Grand Shaman Ithorion, whose wisdom and foresight is unmatched in all of Etharis. Toil was built by the Green Elves long ago, but more detail than that isn't really known. The ancient libraries of their city are well guarded. No human has set foot there, and no human will ever be allowed to set foot in the city of Toil. It's the only place in the Charneault Kingdom that has 0 knights. They're not allowed in the city. Only elves are allowed in the city. And any elf from across Etharis is allowed entrance into Toil if they choose not to leave. Now, Toil is located much closer to the ocean coast on the west than the Charneault Kingdom is. And the Charneault Kingdom and Toil used to very frequently trade. Toil would send them ocean fish and would send them rare fruits from the oceans and the ocean coasts. And in return, the elves would receive cereals and grains that the humans have farmed. Near the grains from the grains that they have farmed, the elves also trade fine beverages, elven goods, which are in high demand anywhere in the world to these the humans of the Charneault Kingdom and all of Etharis. Everybody loves dark elf stuff. Let's see, as far as the Charneault Kingdom goes, and the last area of Sharno that I really wanted to talk about with all of you guys is an area in the southeast of the map, right on the coast. And this area is called the Shaded Haven. What's interesting about the Shaded Haven is it's a small lakeside village. It serves as a sanctuary to many recently changed, recently infected lycanthropes. Now, the people of that city, they go there and they are quite renowned throughout the Charneault Kingdom for their incredible collection of healing herbs. And in fact, it's said that if you bring a clipping or a request for a certain herb, that the depository seer, a woman by the name of Dresia, would be able to tend to the plants and for a small fee, be able to get you the herbs that you need. The most interesting part about the Shaded Haven is that this city of lycanthropes that lives peacefully together, that may sound like quite an outlier all on its own, but they are all working together to try and research the cure for lycanthropy, to try and cure themselves so they can make their way back into their home villages, back into not having this beast clawing out of them at all times. So, that, my friends, Dark Watchers and player characters, is going to be our deep dive series looking into the city, the area of the map known as the Charneault Kingdom, the city of Toil Cardwell, the last elven enclave, and the kingdom of Sharno itself, the humans that live there. I, once again, am your DM Jon, and if you are interested in seeing a group of players go through the world of Etharis and explore, I am the DM for a group called Pact Tactics. We air every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 Central, and I sincerely hope to see you there. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, everybody, stay spooky.